What's up everyone, back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing a beer from Hidden Springs Ale Works, and they're out of Tampa, Florida, and this is their Electric Pegasus. So this is a rainbow sherbet-inspired sour ale with raspberry, orange, and lime. It comes in at 5.5% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed. Time of review. This can is just under 1 month old. I'm going to give a huge thanks and shout out once again to a friend of mine and viewer of the channel, Eli, for this beer. So big thanks to him. In the description box, I'll post a link to the beer mail unboxing video I did that contains all the goodies he sent my way, and he sent me 8 beers in total, 5 of which were unique, and all of them were from breweries in the state of Florida, where he resides in Tampa. I think most of them were from Tampa breweries. There might have been 1 or 2 outside of the area, but yeah, I'm really happy because he sent me 2 Hidden Springs Ale Works beers, and honestly, I have never had a beer from them. I've had a couple beers that they collabed with other breweries. One was an Other Half and Them collab. I can't remember the name of it, but I've heard good things about their beer, and certainly their sour beers. So I'm really excited about this one. Plus, as a little fat kid, I loved rainbow sherbet, and I still do to this day, but I probably have it. I may have had it like 2 or 3 times in maybe the last 20 years. Nothing I really go after nowadays. I like more like, if we're talking about like ice cream and ice cream desserts and whatnot, I'm more of like, you know, I like salted caramel and like coffee and stuff like that. But I remember loving rainbow sherbet growing up. So the classic flavors of rainbow sherbet is raspberry, orange, and lime. They've done some other like variations of this one with like strawberry instead of raspberry, lemon instead of lime. But this is like the classic flavor one. Now I will say this can was super tight. I was going to open it over my sink, but it's not as tight as some of the beers that have exploded. So what I'm going to say is there's a high probability this does gush at the very least. If it does, I got my Bounty paper towels, but I thought I'd open it over the, on camera just to see. But this did travel. I just hope it doesn't gush. And it does not. So just an overfill, we'll say. Anyway, we're going to pour it in the glass here and see what this one's all about. So I'm going to pour the entire thing in. Pretty sure this is just a kettle sour with those flavors. And I would imagine they're using the real flavors because the actual look of the beer definitely looks like some kind of rainbow sherbet. It has more of like a raspberry. If you're brewing this with raspberry, orange, and lime, this is kind of the color. Almost looks like a cherry limeade, honestly. Look at the color. It looks fun. On camera, though, I will say it looks a little bit duller than it does in person. It has more of a brightness in person. Yeah, kind of more like that. But even so, the color itself is more reddish. In person, on camera, it looks more of like a dulled red, but that, whatever case may be, you can't see my hand through it. It has a good murky, turbid kind of look to it. About a finger of this nice, soap sudsy and slightly creamy, I'd say like eggshell white colored head. Kind of plays the role of what I'm looking for if you're talking about something that you would reference as a rainbow sherbet beer of some sort. But I think that looks really nice in the glass. Let's get a nose. Ooh. So it's just a sour ale, but if I was doing this blind, I would instantly call out a Goza. It has this like salinity and like coriander to me. Definitely a salinity. But what I like about the nose is that this screams more than anything else a sour ale. It has that like kind of like perceived tartness in the nose, almost low sourness. Getting some of that salinity. It has that kettle sour kind of like almost like a weedy, slightly bready and doughy kind of malt base. But then in order, I am getting lime, raspberry, and orange. That's what I would call out. It's to me, this honestly smells not as much like rainbow sherbet, but more like a cherry limeade if it was a raspberry limeade. Yeah, actually, it smells like a raspberry limeade. I'm really not even getting the orange that much, if I'm being honest. But I am getting a little bit of salinity and like I said, like a little bit of salinity and like coriander. It's weird. It's almost like this is a Goza. I don't know. Smells pretty good. Not necessarily exactly how they described it as a rainbow sherbet inspired, but I can see they say inspired. So it's inspired from those flavors. Yeah, I get raspberry. I get lime. So it makes sense. Anyway, it is crazy hot outside and I want to refresh myself. So cheers, everybody. Thanks again, Eli. If you're somebody, I'm glad that hit right in the middle of me about to say something. If you're somebody who can't get behind all these crazy pastry sours and sours and we'll just say sour beers in general, kettle sours from American breweries that you just have a shit ton of fruit in them and other adjuncts, and you're just like, that's not even beer anymore. You can't, it's not even tart, let alone sour. Drink this, because this will remind you of an actual sour beer. Like this is so refreshing right now. I just want to go back for another sip. Buying this one's like medium body, 5.5%. I'm absolutely okay with it. The mouthfeel is, again, more of an old school mouthfeel. This is not super smooth and creamy and blah, blah, blah. This is moderately carbonated. It's very spritzy on the palate. It does have a smoothness on the second half, not really creamy at all, but it has a nice crisp kind of feel to it. So body and mouthfeel are appropriate for what this base beer is. I'm glad they didn't call it a pastry sour because it really doesn't taste like one. Plus, the fruits they're using, raspberry, orange, and lime, none of them are like super sweet. I mean, from me eating a lot of fruit over the past like 6 months, you know, I'm down like 25 plus pounds now. I've noticed that like I got some raspberries, and I always said this about raspberries and blueberries, but you'll get like the bushel and you'll be going through it, and one will be like super sweet, one will be super tart, one will be kind of balanced. This is like more of like a tart raspberry. More of a, obviously limes are tart, but even oranges, this doesn't have like a super sweet orange. This is more tart and the actual fruit flavor as opposed to being super sweet. So I do appreciate it. Right up front, I get the base sour. Again, bready, almost doughy. Has a little weedy sensation to it. Again, I'm getting an omnipresent salinity. It could just be from whatever water they're using. There's like a minerality, a salinity, a touch of like a spice. I was saying coriander in the nose. I can't specify that on the palate, but it just has a slight spiciness to it. So the base sour is here, and then riding over top of that is waves of raspberry, lime, and orange, again in that order. It's sweet and tart raspberries, definite tart to sour limes, and the orange is just like a generic orange flavor without like bringing anything else to the forefront. I would say the most disappointing aspect of this beer is the orange isn't as prominent as I remember being. Obviously, when you're eating rainbow sherbet and you have the 3 layers, you can dive into each one. So the raspberry and lime is kind of dominating the orange character for me. Man, this reminds me of when breweries started to be like, hey, we can do some cool shit with beer, so let's throw some fruit in it, right? The first time I remember having a fruited sour, I think it was a fruited Berliner Weiss, and I was like, wow. And then you need to, if you go into Germany, they do the Woodrow syrup with them, the different flavors you can use and whatnot. So this reminds me of like you have a base Berliner Weiss or Goza, but you're like putting a shot of like raspberry, lime, and orange syrup into this one. And it's getting the job done. Is this like an amazing beer? It's not amazing to me, but like, if you just call this like a fruited sour, this is really properly done and not overly sweet. It's what sours used to be before they got all crazy, and I'm here for it. It's not really super sweet either. Like a lot of these can be sweet. This is more of like a mild sweetness. This finishes firmly, I'd say actually lower side of sour. It has a sourness to it. There's a moderate acidity here. It's very dry on the palate too, like bone dry. No bitterness, not super sweet. Pretty good balance, but if anything, this leans more like sour and dry than anything else. So this is a beer you just want to keep on going back to because like my palate is kind of just devoid of any saliva at this point. But also, it has a pretty big acidic kind of feel. If you're somebody who easily gets heartburn, you might not like this. Each sip makes me pucker. Now, here's the real thing. If I was to rate this to what they're calling it, so a rainbow sherbet-inspired sour ale, I would dock them points for not really me picking up on the orange, and it really doesn't taste like rainbow sherbet. What it tastes like is the aforementioned like raspberry limeade. If they call this a raspberry limeade inspired sour, I'd be like, yes, this is like 5 out of 5 for what you're going for. So I'm just going to give it my own personal score. I'm not going to say, oh, it's a rainbow sherbet sour because whatever. But I think for a sour ale with those 3 fruits in it, I get 2 of the fruits prominently. It's beautifully sour. It's not overly sweet. The body and mouthfeel are really nice. I think this is a damn tasty beer. It's not blowing my mind, but it's just well made, well brewed, and well executed. So Electric Pegasus from Hidden Springs Ale Works. I'm going to go low 4.25 and go 4.2. This, my friends, is awesome. For what it is. And look at that label. You got a unicorn. I love the white label with like all the popping light blue, purple colors, the rainbows, so to speak. It's just a beautiful looking can. I might have to save it just because I like how it looks. Price point availability. I asked Eli, and I also checked their website. So on their website, they did have these left, and they were $16 a 4-pack. I think he said where he went was like around $15 a 4-pack, but he said he might have went to Hidden Springs because he said that you could buy singles of them. I think he said they still do single sales. If Hidden Springs does single cans, that is awesome. I wish more breweries would do that. He said he paid $6 for a single. Bit pricey when you're talking about $16 a 4-pack, so you're paying an extra $2 to get a single, but you can get a single. You don't have to buy it. If it's maybe a beer you're hesitant about, it's like, oh, I can buy a single for $6 instead of spending $16 and maybe I don't like the beer, right? So I think that's a cool aspect. But if you want a 4-pack of it from the brewery on their website, it says $16 a 4-pack to pick it up at their brewery. Speaking of which, price point and distribution availability, I have no idea. Never seen them here in Buffalo, New York. I do know they're obviously in Tampa, Florida. I don't know if they make it on like, Tavor or any other websites, or other people get drops of them, say in the South. No idea. So if anybody wants to speak to that, post in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about it. Huge thanks to Eli for this one. The other one I have from them is the Return to Cinder, which is a Brazilian Asahi bowl-inspired pastry sour. So that is a pastry beer. This one is not. We'll see if I enjoy that one as much as this, but man, I'm really stoked on this one because this is exactly what I wanted today. A nice, refreshing tart beer into low sour that isn't super sickly sweet. And I don't even think the calories would be as much as like a heavily fruited or like a pastry sour, because all you're using is raspberry, orange, and lime. And honestly, it's not as much as you would see in sours nowadays with those three fruits. So this is a throwback sour ale. So anyway, again, if you had this one before, please post in the comment section. Appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here in the Beer Patrol. 5.5%, I can't tell. I'm going to go slam back the rest of this probably in like 5 to 10 minutes because it is very refreshing. Anyway, thanks again to Eli. Thanks to everybody. Till the next one. Cheers.